After.
What is a rental agreement under residential property? It says a rental agreement is a document that acts as a contract between the landlord and the tenant. Very simple. Define the terms of the tenancy. You can have it, it must be written, clearly spelled out. We talk about the number of months, the rent you are charging. Is it month-to-month basis? Is it 6 months rental period? Is it 1 year? The 2 years? We talk about, am I permitted to bring in my pets into the compound? All the tenant improvements, can I change all the windows? Can I change your tiles? Can I work on the electrical part, the plumbing part, and other part of the house? What time am I permitted to come into the house? When are they closing the gates? All this must be clearly written in the what? Agreement. When it comes to tenant agreement, it's such a document that is binding. It's a legal document which must be what? Prepared. Now, we also have commercial agreements as well. Talk about commercial agreement. Commercial offices are measured in square feet. Offices are measured in what? Square feet. Why, when it comes to warehouses, they are rented out in cubic feet. Cubic feet. Why, if it is in the residential, it has to do with the whole of the what? The property. We have the calculations for the square feet, whereby you multiply the length and the width, and that gives you the square feet of the house. But when it is the cubic, you calculate the length, the width, and the height. Because in the warehouse, you must make use of what? The space, the height there. We talk about agreement in the commercial space. When it is in commercial, there are several informations there. Easements. Easement has to do with the space, common areas, how the usage of common areas in the compound. We talk the right to use, which is very important. We talk about registration of even the document. It must be recorded with government. That document must be what? Recorded. Let's go. We talk about eminent domain. The landlord can decide to come and say part of this rented space should be available for him in the next year. By next year, I want to make use of it. That's what's called eminent domain. Permission to sublease part of the house or part of the building. There must be outright, all this must be clearly written. Because we can't just sublet if it is not agreed. But if the agreement is in place, you can sublet without any issue. Inspection and repairs. The landlord is permitted to come and what? Inspect. So you both agree on the time and the time frame when he or she can always come to inspect. We talk about damages of the premises. We talk about the size. It's called the size, the rentable size, rentable space. You know, as the house might have about 1,000 square feet space, and you are just only going for 10,000. Might have about 100,000. You are only what? So you must capture the size. The base rent must be clearly spelled out. How much am I paying as the base rent? Because the base rent is a fraction of the total amount to be paid. In the total amount to be paid, we're talking about other services, maintenance, taxes, security, some improvements, some escalations. But the base rent must be clear. Must be clear. Talk about tenant obligations. Talk about default fees. there must be a notice ahead. A 30 days notice must be written. If you are still interested in the same property, a 60 days notice must be given. A 6 months notice must be given. All this must be captured. Which one are we taking? All this must be captured in the deed, must be written. If you default, what are the consequences? If I default, what are the consequences? If you are to repaint the house as a landlord after 5 years, it must be written there. If you have to change all the tiles, all the roof and everything, must be written there. Who is managing the building? Most important, in most cases, landlords do manage most of the buildings, whereby the landlord cannot provide a manager. Now it's now incumbent on the tenant and say, I am interested in your manager or not. Please change your manager, but cannot change the management. Some legal requirements, like the keeping of the compound clean. Sanitation officers will always come in to check. It is the responsibility of the tenant to make sure the compound is what? Kept clean. Right of first refusal must be given to the tenant if there is any new space available. The landlord must write the tenant to say, I have extra 10,000 square feet space available. Are you interested? If yes, fine. If no, it's called what? Right of first refusal. You also have the right of first offer. All this must be clearly written. You talk about parking. How many cars are you permitted to park? Because you rented a fraction of the building, and other tenants are also there. So we are sharing the parking lot. So you are only permitted to park 30 cars. Anything above that, you have to pay for it. You talk about working hours. You have to work within 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Anything beyond that must be what? Charged for. So the two of you will have to sit down and look into it. Option to renew. Option to renew. Am I still interested after the long lease of 10 years? You have the option to renew. We talk about, let's go on. Holding. Option for additional space. This is very important. It must be given if it's available. Because without telling the tenant, a new person coming might want to come and do the same business, and there will be clash of interest. So as a commercial tenant, all this must be clearly written and understood from the beginning of the transaction. Tenant improvement, tenant can decide to improve on the property, can decide to spend his money and improve. In some cases, the two parties will have to share the money. So an independent observer will come to check what has been done and do the calculation. Or we are both agreeing that the landlord will provide the architect. Or we are both agreeing that the tenant will provide the architect. Or we are both outsourcing an external person to come and work on it. Letter of credit. This letter of credit must be provided from the bank to the landlord to say that, yes, as a bank, we are guaranteeing our customer. Our customer will not what? Default in paying his or her rent. So all this must be captured. You can read through, just so many of all these points, about 25 points, that must be captured in any agreement, in any commercial agreement. Because it is not only because of now. The future is very important. But when an agreement is in place, it is what? Binding. And as the agreement is binding, it will help all parties to be sensitive of their position. Because if there is no agreement, there will be what? There might be issues. Like, for example, all the common areas in the property reside with the landlord in perpetuity. So you are only permitted to make use of your rentable space or rented space, you are only what? Permitted. But the common area, we can put in the agreement if you are given maybe a 5 or 10% opportunity of the space to make use of. Is that okay? So all this must be clearly written in the agreement, so that tomorrow we all see ourselves and we'll be happy. And that's why in Agri Investment Limited, we always have a contract from the beginning of every of our transaction, so that the landlord or the new buyer, the customer would have read through. We always send to them, would have been acquainted with all the information. And after the initial deposit, all the parties will sign. And also, for this agreement is always time bound. Both parties can either do a 6 month, a 3 month, a 7 days. That this agreement is valid for XYZ. So that's why in that view we don't have issues with our clients, because we always respect agreements. In that view we don't only build cities, we build lives. Thank you.